Hi everybody, so I'm just going to talk you through Anne Jennifer's Tigers poem here by Adrian Rich. It's the first poem that we're doing by Adrian Rich. I have explained it already in the live lesson, which was this morning, but because some people were absent there, um, some people had connectivity issues and stuff, I'm just going to do a screencast as well. So this is mainly for the people who are absent. If you were present in the live session, then you will have heard much of what I have to say already about the poem. So I'll just read through the poem first, and then I will talk myself through it afterwards. So I'll just read through it. It's on page 209 in your poetry book if you want to read it there as well. Okay, so you can obviously take down some notes in pencil in your book. Okay, so Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree, they pace in sleek chivalric certainty. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panels that she made will go on panting, proud and unafraid. So what I will do here is firstly talk through the first stanza, and then the second stanza, and then the third stanza. So the first stanza, really, I think it opens with the speaker. It's the aunt, the speaker's aunt she's embroidering a picture on a decorative screen. So the embroidery there is kind of a symbol of her domestic life in her marriage. The image is definitely full of life. It's a very powerful image, and is showing the tigers to be quite exotic creatures. They're energetic and they're playful, very confident animal. The words like pace and prance here show that the tiger's pride. So this stanza really is a symbol of the aunt's creative imagination. I think it depicts her in her confined and restricted situation that she's in her marriage, that she is forced to kind of create an alternative world in her mind to kind of escape from her marriage. So she's kind of suppressing her innermost thoughts here. The embroidery is definitely a symbol of how she lives in this marriage, and she's kind of suppressed in her marriage, just doing her duties as a wife. I think the tigers move through the world of green with supreme confidence. And if I can draw your attention to this word chivalric here, I suppose chivalry going back to medieval times would suggest perhaps the idea that the tiger represents kind of male power as well, and that idea of honor. So far in this stanza, I think you have to bear in mind that tigers, they have been hunted by humans, which is kind of ironic, almost to the point of extinction. But their bright colours are exotic and unrealistic. The term chivalric, I think, is interesting because it does talk about, convey the idea that the knights in medieval history had a very powerful reputation for being honourable and respectful towards women. Perhaps this is kind of what's missing in her relationship with her husband. Definitely I think the tiger represents the power that men have, or that she thinks that men have, the speaker of the poem, in her marriage in particular. So definitely we're dealing with kind of themes of oppression of women here. If there's any words that you don't understand, lads, there's just some explanations here at the side as well in the glossary. Okay, so stanza 2. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. So the stress there is on she's finding it hard to embroider it, and I don't think that's to be interpreted on a literal level. It can be, but definitely on a metaphorical level, it's difficult for her to pull through. Fingers fluttering, I think it depicts her as a frail, delicate figure. The reference to the ivory reminds us of how I think men dominate the world, hunting and killing elements for their tusks made of ivory. Of course, the use of alliteration there, fingers fluttering, again, as I was saying, it just depicts her as fragile, kind of sensitive person. She's struggling with even simple tasks in her marriage, such as embroidering um, the needle with the needle. Um, so the next two lines then shows her as a very much dominated wife. She suffers kind of acute emotional pressure, and that there we can tell that by the massive weight of the uncle's wedding band. That the uncle's wedding band is very symbolic. That the pressure she feels from that marriage. So the uncle's wedding band. This is a very, probably the most important quote in the poem. You can see the image here even. So marriage is a burden. Marriage confines the aunt. Marriage has left her weak, weary, and insecure. The weight, massive weight. Remember, she it could be just the weight, but but the massive weight. So that shows us that this is a huge burden to her. Marriage is definitely a negative force in her life, as I've written here. The ring she wears is the uncle's wedding band. So marriage is definitely depicted here as a dark, negative function in her life. Years of marriage has left Aunt Jennifer weak, kind of weary and nervous. The wedding band, as I say, symbolises the power and control that her husband has over her. So I suppose the fluttering fingers here, are very much contrasted. These are her fluttering fingers trying to embroider with the ivory needle, is very much contrasted here to the massive weight of the uncle's wedding band. That suggests the control that he has over her, and it implies that she's definitely oppressed in her marriage, and it doesn't seem to be a positive marriage. Marriage doesn't seem to have a positive influence on her life. It's all negative here. Very pessimistic outlook on marriage here. So then we'll move on to the third stanza. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed and with ordeals she was mastered by. So I have circled here the words ringed and mastered, because I think those two words there, suggest that the marriage is one of confinement and domination. I think the noun ordeals here, if you think about the word ordeal, it's definitely, even it says it here on the side, a painful or difficult experience. So I think ordeal definitely evokes the sense of a harsh or a painful experience for this character, Aunt Jennifer, and she's mastered by. So that's another very strong word that, is she owned by this man? She definitely doesn't feel like, she has kind of maybe a say in her own life, that he is dominating her, very much in this marriage and ultimately in her life. We are moved to the future in this poem when Aunt is dead. So she's imagining that she's dead here. That when she dies, her terrified hands will lie still ringed with ordeals that she was mastered by. That even in death, that she's dominated by her marriage, dominated by the uncle, her husband. So even in death, that she's kind of not she's still limited, and that marriage here is very much seen as something that stifles a woman's personal development. And now look, however, the last two lines, the tigers in the panel that she made will go prancing, proud and unafraid, and that's referring to the embroidery that she has made with the picture of the tiger. So she's embroidering in the first stanza here, she's embroidering a picture of a tiger, prancing across the screen, tigers, bright topaz, denizens of earl green. So down here, that her embroidery still lives on, even after she has died. And that embroidery really is a symbol of her creative imagination. So after that woman has died, the timeless creature that she has created in her embroidery will live on. And that is kind of witness to her talent and her creativity that she did not maybe get to execute in her marriage. That, perhaps if she didn't get married, maybe it's a suggestion there that she would have gone on to do even more creative things in her life. However, I think marriage, she feels, has definitely limited her. But I think the art which she has created, the embroidery, while it kind of represents her own struggles in her marriage, it is kind of a sense of freedom for her, that she still, in all of this, has her own imagination, and nobody can ever take away her mind or her own creativeness from her. I suppose you could say it's quite an ambiguous ending, meaning that it could be interpreted on many levels. Um, the inequality continues even in death, um, her confinement, but her art still will always live on. And this piece of art which she has created, the embroidery, um, will always remain even after she has died and represent perhaps the life that she could have had if she didn't get married. So, the main themes in this poem, guys, I mean, it's two main ones really. Marriage definitely is a theme, and then the other theme would be the oppression of women and perhaps how women are oppressed within that function or institution of marriage. Marriage is not displayed in a positive light at all, very negative light, in fact. And I think there's a sharp contrast there between the power and the confidence which the tigers are depicted, and the weakness and perhaps timidity or sensitivity that the Aunt Jennifer is depicted in. Very strong symbolism in the poem. The uncle's wedding band, definitely a very strong symbol there. Marriage itself could be seen as a symbol. The tiger obviously is a symbol of male power. Very formal style. The poem is written in rhyming couplets, kind of an AABB rhyming scheme. Obviously, we have quite a bit of alliteration in there, so we have chivalric certainty and fingers fluttering in terms of poetic techniques. Yeah, I think the images are very strong. Wonderful description here in the first stanza. And the tones then, you could say it's kind of objective. There are, so there's a lot of different tones and varied tones in this poem. Didactic, objective, ironic. They all kind of convey the poet's view on marriage. So we can see that Adrian Rich, perhaps doesn't think that marriage is a good function really, and she's quite critical of it. Another theme may be male-female relationships in here, and the contrast perhaps between the powerful and the oppressed. You could interpret it that way as well. So yeah, that's it really, guys. I hope that helps you to understand the poem. As I say, I went through this in the live class today, so this is mainly for people who were absent from the live class. So hopefully this helps people to understand the poem a little bit better. Okay, if you have any questions, you can just let me know.